which is just like the CD image. They don't host them all and download them themselves. I think they redirect you to a website that each of these organizations hosts. Okay, but basically, if you have a CD burner and a fast internet connection, you can burn yourself a CD of any of these Linuxes here, Slackware, Red Hat, Debian, Caldera, whatever. You can just go ahead and burn yourself a CD image of that distribution, and you can have your own distribution for the price of your internet connection and the price of a blank CD. Okay, so you know, that's another way to get it. Another place that you might look is www.linuxmall.com. Okay, and they've got a bunch of stuff there. And if you scroll down here, you'll see there's Red Hat 7.2 for $60. Okay, there's Turbo Linux 6.0 for $10. Okay, so I mean, this is cheap, right? This is cheap stuff, and Red Hat's got like a lot of support for it. Over here, you can see, you know, you can get the actual. Or where is it? Oh, over here. The stuffed penguin for 36-inch stuffed penguin is more than the Linux distribution. Okay, so you know, that's what they're selling here at the mall. You know, if you want a little stuffed penguin to sit on top of your computer, you're going to pay more for that than you're going to pay for the actual distribution, which is kind of ironic, right? So, you know, just decide which one's best for you. And when we go to do the installation, I have a Red Hat CD. I'm going to be installing it off there. But you know, if you download it and try to install it from the download, it's going to be pretty much the same process once you get it going. So don't worry too much about what media you're going to install it from. It's all pretty much the same. There's different licenses that can govern the software that you get in Linux, and I want to just go over these a little bit. Basically, let me give you a little bit of history. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, there was a foundation called the Free Software Foundation. And the Free Software Foundation, the point of their movement was that, you know, we were going to create this big body of software. It was going to be free. People could take the software, look at the source code for it, and modify it and do things with it, and you know, build up this huge base of free software. Okay, and for the most part, you know, it succeeded, right? I mean, we got a lot of software like the GNU project and stuff like that. It's a huge amount of software. The Linux kernel that Linus Torvalds wrote was released under the free software movement. The license for that was the GPL, or the General Public License, and this was like the original license for the Free Software Foundation movement. Also, the LGPL was part of that, the Library General Public License. And basically, what the license for this said was that, you know, they build up a huge body of source code, all these tools and routines for people to use, and the trick was, or the trade-off was, that if you used this stuff to build some other piece of software, then you had to release your new piece of software also under the General Public License. Okay, you couldn't take their code, modify it, and then release some commercial product with it. Okay, and that seemed kind of fair, right? Because the Free Software Foundation was founded on, you know, here, we build all this stuff up, we're contributing to the community, we're giving all this free labor and free time and free source code to the community. You can take this as long as you, in turn, give free software back to the community. Okay, so it was definitely like this community-driven organization, the Free Software Foundation. Now, there were other licenses that governed software back then. The MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology license, that governed the X Windows system. That's where it was written. And that's even less restrictive than the GPL. The MPL, the Mozilla Public License, was for the Mozilla web browser. Again, that was a very specific license just for Mozilla. But the point was, there was lots of sort of splintering off here of licenses just for various, you know, different opinions of what exactly the license should cover. Okay, and sometime in the mid-90s, there was a severe splintering of this whole Free Software Foundation open source movement, and some people spun off on it, and basically they made up a new set of rules here. And the rules, you know, I've just listed a few here, but they basically listed out, I don't know, 10 or 12 rules or something. And the rules, you know, definitely included things like free redistribution of the software, okay, and source availability. But they also said things like the modifications of this software, if somebody takes it and modifies it, the modifications can be released under other licenses. So someone could take this license, or take this software that was free, and modify it, and then, you know, do something different with it. It's not free software anymore. Okay, so that's a little bit tricky, right? I mean, you know, it just makes things a little bit tricky, and it definitely splintered off the groups, and this, I think, was the main sticking point there. And I don't want to get into this too much. The main thing here is, you know, this mostly affects developers, people that are writing code. They see code out there, they want to modify it and do something with it. This mostly affects them, and if they're going to do that, and if they're going to try and make money off of it, you better be really careful, because they better fall under certain license classifications and not other ones. And you know, consult a lawyer or something. I'm not the person to talk to about the nuances of this, but I just want to get the terms out there, the GPL terms, the open source terms. And then the other alternative, obviously, is commercial software. Commercial software has closed source. They don't show you the source code behind the software. Distribution limitations. You know, I can't take my Microsoft Office disk and install it on my computer and then turn around and give it to you legally and let you install it on your computer, right? That's breaking the distribution laws of Microsoft. And typically commercial software is payment. All right? But there's a lot of gray area in between this whole free software, commercial software, open source software classifications. Like take Star Office, for instance. Star Office is free. Like, you can download it for free and install it on your computer, and you know, great, it's free software, but it still is closed source. They're not showing you the source code behind Star Office. So, you know, what's the deal? Is that free software? Is it commercial software? I don't know. I don't know how you'd classify it. But the point is, it's not as easy to draw the lines and say this is free software, this is commercial software, like it was back in 1990. And I don't know if that's better or worse than it was. There's definitely more software available now to you. There's still a hell of a lot of free software out there for you to put on your Linux machine. So in some sense, I don't think it's gotten any worse just because there's more people involved in the movement now than there was back then. But just be aware that if some developer comes to you as a system administrator and says, hey, I've done this, and I'm going to do this and this with this software that I've modified, you know, be careful about that. Don't let them do that under certain license conditions. And like I said, consult a lawyer if you're confused, because it's not the room for computer people. That's the room for lawyers there. Now let's talk about software available for Linux. Let's open up Mozilla web browser again. And you know, there's tons of good software out there for Linux for all sorts of applications. Let's go to this website called linuxsoftware.org. Okay, and linuxsoftware.org has all sorts of stuff. You can see the classification here for software programs. You know, there's 422 total programs in these categories. Everything from file compression utilities to games to full-on Linux distributions like Debian and Red Hat and Slackware are available here for download. And some of the things are free. A lot of them are free. Some of them cost money. You know, and you can see that when you pull up the various tools, what's up with them. And you know, earlier when we were talking about Linux versus Windows, I was saying, you know, if you have a Linux machine, you're kind of fighting an uphill battle in terms of software. Well, you're not fighting an uphill battle in terms of like the available software that you have on Linux. If you're just running some standalone Linux computer, you've got tons of choices, sometimes even more than on Windows machines, and you know, you've got tons of choices out there to do whatever you need to do. Where you're fighting a little bit of an uphill battle is if you've got like a Linux machine and everybody else in your office has Windows machines. When I was a professor, that was my situation. I had a Unix box, everybody else had Windows boxes, and they'd be running, you know, like Excel, and they'd send me some Excel spreadsheet and want me to read it, and that was a real pain in the butt because I had to like save it and try to go over to some Windows machine in the lab and try to look at it, and it was just kind of a pain. It got old really fast. Okay, so you know, that's the only time you're fighting the uphill battle is when you're trying to share files between the Windows platform and the Linux platform. Let's go under productivity tools here, and you know, you can see a whole bunch of stuff here: fax tools, financial tools, office applications. Let's go into office applications, and when we go in there, let's go to office suites. Okay, so here's Office suites that are available for Linux. Andrew is a very mature Office suite, and it's got word processors, editors, spreadsheets, all sorts of stuffs in Andrew. Applexware is another one that's, you know, it's got all sorts of stuff. You know, word processors again, spreadsheets, drawing programs. K-Office is another one, and this is an integrated Office suite for the K desktop environment. And again, spreadsheets, word processors, drawing programs, draw charts and diagrams, formula editors, all sorts of stuffs here. Okay, so you know, there's no shortage of Office suites available for Linux. But like I said, the problem is when you're trying to interact. And one noteworthy piece of software there is Star Office, and Star Office is Microsoft Office compatible. So, you know, somebody should be able to run Excel or whatever on their computer, send you some Excel document, and you should be able to open it on Star Office on your Linux computer and, you know, save, you know, read the file, write it, save it, give it back to them, and they should be able to open it and read it and so on. Okay? Now, I'm always a little bit leery of things that say so-and-so compatible. Right? I've always run into problems with that. You know, they're compatible in 90% of the situations, but there's always those, you know, extraneous things that make them not be compatible. Okay, so you know, if it was up to me and I was running this office and there was, you know, some Linux users, some Windows users, and people wanted to share files, I would get everybody to install StarOffice, because StarOffice runs on Linux machines, it runs on Windows machines, and then the compatibility